So what seems to be a dull genealogy to us is really an epic history being recited in a very few lines that on the surface sound dull to the uninitiated, which most of us Christians are. We find this boring, we don't see any meaning in it because we never bothered to learn what it means. This guy, Jeconiah, is the one who went out into Babylon under chains, okay? And then he was 18 at that time. He was freed at age 55 by the Babylonian king, who really liked him a bunch and felt sorry for him. And as a result of the Babylonian king doing that for him, the Babylonian king was murdered. Okay? And either Jeconiah had adopted Shealtiel, or Shealtiel was the guy who couldn't have kids. Because that's the Jeconiah curse. God cursed Jeconiah, saying that his kids would never be on the throne. So either he had Shealtiel naturally, or he adopted him, and then Shealtiel maybe couldn't have kids and adopted Zerubbabel. I forget which is the story the Bible tells. It's one of those two. Well, seed of Baal is announced as seed of Christ, Haggai 2, twice. On the 25th of Kislev, which would later become Hanukkah, which was the foundation date of the Second Temple's foundation stone. And you learn all that in Haggai and in Ezra. Okay? So, all that history is encapsulated here. Every Jew would be remembering a name and remembering the history that goes with that name. You can't talk about Jeconiah without remembering the whole story to a Jew. Same thing with Shealtiel, Eliakim. They knew everybody had more than one name. Okay, and we just haven't done enough Bible homework to know who these people are. You know, some of the scholars say, well, we can't find these people in the Bible. Yeah, you can. You just haven't done enough homework yet. And I haven't done enough homework yet to tell you where they are. But they're there. Okay? But the Jews getting this at the time knew immediately. That's why these names are used. Because each person had more than one name. And so each writer, when he's writing his book, he's writing to the most common popular name known at the time of writing. Because that's the first audience to get the book. And of course, had the audience been faithful to the word, they would have passed on. Well, Abihud means, and they would have passed it on, and we would know from the paper trail of the past who these people are. And I'm sure we do. But we're not consulting the Jews enough to know. So a lot of scholars are in the dark about this and say that they can't trace this. And then they throw up their hands and think how, proud of themselves they are, that they trust the Bible anyway. Oh, aren't they, doing God a favor? No, it's bad homework. Do your homework. Let's talk to the Jews and find out what they know. They're not 100% right, and neither are we. End of commercial message. So we got a political story here. That's how Matthew's opening it. It's a fulfillment of prophecy, yes. But on a political level, it's the worst possible nightmare you can imagine. Okay? Satan is not going to want this to happen. And if you look at the Old Testament, he worked long and hard to prevent Christ from being born. First, he tried to prevent humanity by getting the angels to have sex with the women by Genesis 6. And when that didn't work, because Noah and his wife wouldn't do it, and neither would their kids, then God destroyed everybody else, and that just left them. And they repopulated the earth. And it took a while. I mean, you don't have to have a huge population on the earth. You're going to have what looks like a huge population, because the huge population that was there got drowned out. So you have all these buildings, but not a lot of people in those buildings. Witness Chaco Canyon, which year-long, Chaco Canyon's in the United States. The year-long population was something like 100. But at one point, at different points during the year, it might have been as high as 2,500. Okay, so then they had a lot of buildings, but they were rarely occupied. Same thing is true for any kind of resort town. They're occupied 3 months out of the year, but there are like 90,000 hotels that are occupied maybe only 3 months of the year. Same idea. So after the flood, there were a whole lot of buildings left behind and a whole lot of goods, but not a lot of people. So how long did it take to repopulate? Who knows? Could have been fast, could have been short. Long. In all events, the more people you got, the more politics you got, the more people differentiate, and the more a claim like this makes those who don't fit, who aren't, if you're not this guy, you wish you were, because now, if I was a Bayhud, then I could claim that I'm better than somebody who's not, because after all, the line of Christ is coming for me, and I know that because of Zerubbabel. I'm the son of Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel is promised to be the father of Christ. That means Christ is going to be my descendant. Aren't I important? And everybody who's the brother of a Bayhud is going to want to kill a Bayhud, because they believe the same lie, that they're more important because, they're related, and that he's more important than them because he's the son of the son. See, this guy was one of the most persecuted guys in history because of the promise to him. David was persecuted because of the promise to him. This guy was persecuted because of the promise to him. Why? Because what is the promise? The promise is, this is God taking on humanity as the son of David. And by the way, when he gets here, he's going to kill everybody else and beat everybody else up. So if you're not believing in him and you're not related to him by blood, you don't like the people who are. Biggest political war in history. All outlined right here. Big political war. Satan himself tried to stop Israel from being a nation. Satan got Israel out of being a nation, deported to Babylon. Satan almost succeeded in stopping the line of David through the Jeconiah curse. But Shealtiel believed in the Lord, Zerubbabel believed in the Lord, and either one or both of these guys were sons of Nathan through David. Thereby, the promise got kept, and then it kept on going. This is an epic story. Not only is everybody on earth against Zerubbabel, to the extent they know the story, but Satan himself is against this guy. The demons are targeting this guy. He's going to be the father of Messiah. They're targeting him. So do you want to guess how much Mary and Joseph were targeted? Even before they knew about their lot. They're sons of David. They're children of David. They're in the inheritance line. Mary would have been next. She had a higher position than Joseph. Joseph was the son of Nathan also, but he was lower down the totem pole. I'm not, I have to go through the genealogy to find out why. But that's the same thing as with the Levites. All the Levite inheritance came through the daughters. And then I cover that in my Jochebed HTM webpage. Mary. It came down to Mary. Okay, so the last thing they need is a scandal. When it says in Isaiah 9, a virgin shall conceive, Parthenos. Okay, that tells you which of the two Hebrew meanings of virgin was meant. Not just unmarried woman, not just a young woman, but somebody who's never had sex with a man. All right, because it was translated by Jews in the LXX. Jews wrote the LXX. They know which version of the Hebrew was meant. Okay, he kept her a virgin until she gave birth. This is a scandal. Here we are coming to the guy who's going to just take over the world. And how does he come? He comes from a royal family, all right. These are the two privileged people of that family. But she's pregnant before marriage? Yeah, that fulfills the prophecy. See, here's the prophecy being quoted. That's why I like to use the NASB in my videos. You can see it real easily. This is the Isaiah prophecy. Yeah, but she's not married. And that's why she's not married. She's still a virgin. This is going to haunt Jesus from the beginning of his birth onward. Was he a child of fornication? And that's another reason why this genealogy is so important and why Matthew constructed it as he did, because he leaves out Ataliah's sons. Ataliah was a vicious queen, and she was legally married, but she didn't believe. She was against Israel. She tried to destroy it, really. Okay? And he's begging the question of legitimacy, which, that's been the big question in, political entities from time immemorial. Who is the real son of King John II? Okay? Who is the real son of King Gustav? If you're not the real son, you're illegitimate, you don't deserve to take over the throne. That's always a political issue. Okay, well, if she's pregnant out of wedlock, that's a legitimacy question. And of course, if you don't believe that she was supernaturally pregnant, then everything about Christ's story falls. It couldn't be a worse nightmare than to have a virgin conceiving. This is a prediction of nightmare to the person who gets it. Whoever is born of this virgin, okay, they shall call his name Emmanuel. Yeah, but that's in the future. During the time he's alive, they're going to despise him, and that's Isaiah 53:2. So the nation that's supposed to be delivered by God begins with a personal scandal. You got that? It's not only a personal scandal, but it's a political scandal. How is he going to make his credential as king, let alone Messiah? If before they're married, she's pregnant. Yeah, you can assume that Joseph made her pregnant and wouldn't admit it, or admitted it by marrying her. But this is saying that God will make her pregnant. Oh, that's just going to go over real well. And most of our Jesus movies do recognize that problem. So here we have a personal political catastrophe. This person who's supposed to be your Messiah is, by the way, by all accounts and purposes, except for the woman's own testimony, is a bastard. That's a technical name for somebody born out of wedlock. That's why it became a swear word. When you call somebody a bastard, you're saying that they were born out of wedlock, technically. Okay? So that's why Joseph, when he finds out she's pregnant, wants to put her away secretly. He loves her, and he wants to deal with her honorably. But what can he do? He knows he didn't have sex with her. And that's why the Lord has an angel appear to him. But their position as a couple is still suspect. You got them saying, hi, we both were visited by an angel. Oh, yeah. Who's going to believe that? What, they're covering up their little tryst that they had before they got married. And people will just laugh it off. But you know what? That's illicit sex. It looks like illicit sex, one way or the other. So who's going to believe that this is the God-man Messiah? So you got a very stark, horrible political situation here. The people who the Jews are expected to believe in, for all intents and purposes, seems to be the illegitimate son, or the made after the fact legitimate son of Joseph and Mary. You got that? Okay, then his right to be king is not legitimate either. Not even from a human perspective. Doesn't matter what their bloodlines are. It wasn't done the right way. So how can this person be God? All right, very controversial, very politically incorrect. You got to understand why the Pharisees objected the way they did. And the flip side is that he really is God-man, and what they say is true. There's no nice boy Jesus story here. It is a you're committing political suicide if you believe this story. That's chapter 1. These are his generations. This is the claim. This is why Joseph listened to the claim. And we're seeing Joseph's side of the story, not Mary's. Luke will cover Mary's. And we're seeing Christ born amidst political scandal to what? Fulfill this verse. Now there were 2 fulfillments of that verse. The first one was Isaiah's own wife. She ended up having a child that he had to name Maher Shalal Hashbaz, meaning that swift to collect the booty. Okay, and then the far fulfillment would be Christ. And it's a long story why God linked up those two. All prophecy is dual in nature. It has an immediate fulfillment as a down payment on the future fulfillment. And that's, talk to your pastor about that because that's a subject of its own. But you get the point here. This is a major, major political brouhaha right here. If you're a Jew and you believe in Christ, this is what you got to overcome as a hurdle. This part isn't so bad. I mean, it's bad enough. It tells you the struggle that happened. And the Jews would all know the persecution they were under. But I mean, it looks like God is hitting you while you're down. Okay, you're already persecuted by everybody on the planet because the Messiah is supposed to come from your loins. So everybody and his brother is jealous of you if he's within your family. And everybody outside the Jewish family, so to speak, the Jews, are jealous of the Jews. And I mean, you have to admit, I don't care what your faith is, you have to admit that that it's downright supernatural that people are so antagonistic to the Jews. It makes no sense. The Jews have done nothing to deserve the kind of anti-Semitism that exists. Okay? It's supernatural how people organize against them. It's supernatural the kind of lunacy. Anti-Semitism is lunatic in all of its forms. Okay? The lunacy of going against the Jews. And this is the cause of it. Satan's behind it all. Because he's got to stop this from happening. So God plays into his hands? Hello? Does that make sense? God's going to play into his hands by creating a political scandal just to fulfill this prophecy? Why did he have to make such a prophecy in the first place? Why didn't he just make it different? Why does she have to be a virgin? She didn't have to be a virgin. He could have said, well, the woman's going to be named Mary, and just after she marries this guy named Joseph, I'm going to make her pregnant anyhow. It's going to really come from, because it has to be impregnated by God in order to get rid of the old sin nature. But he could have, this prophecy didn't have to be worded like this. It could have been, hi, someday there's going to be a woman named Miriam. That's a common name. We call it Mary. And she's going to be married to a guy named Yosef. That's also a common name. And that woman's kid is going to be named Jesus. And that means Emmanuel. That's Jesus and Emmanuel, Yeshua. Yeshua means to save. God with us is the literal name of this. Again, God-man. This wording of this prophecy doesn't have to be here. It could be other words that are the prophecy that's being fulfilled. He didn't have to create a political bomb by saying a virgin's going to be with child. That's a political bomb. That would alienate polite society. He's advancing. In advance, he's telling Isaiah, hi, I'm going to do the politically incorrect thing and make a virgin pregnant. I personally, God, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to, the down payment on that's going to be your wife's going to naturally have a kid by you. But it's going to be supernatural. So I'm going to do something Israel's going to dislike and is supposed to dislike because it's politically wrong to associate with an adulteress. I'm going to put my son, my very own son, under a cloud from the time he's born. And by the way, he's also supposed to be king, which this erases his legitimacy as a king. Now, I've spent a lot of time on that, but it's because we don't spend a lot of time on it. We don't realize the political explosiveness of this chapter, but we need to in order to understand what Matthew's trying to write. Okay, so you got that. All right, so now we come to Matthew 2. All right? What is this? Where's the King of the Jews? Now, I covered already in Synoptics 1. Even if we ignore Christ being born under a cloud of suspicion, ignore that. You got another political brouhaha right here. All right. First of all, we know there's no star. When they say they saw his star, that doesn't mean there was one. That means something they saw in the sky looked like a star to them. Okay, but if there really was a star, you wouldn't have this verse here, this verse here. Okay? They obviously explained the prophecy because these are magi, they were astrologers, they associated the signs in the heavens and all that good stuff. But see, an angel's going to look like a star to them. And Herod and his friends aren't seeing any star, because they wouldn't be asking these questions, and he wouldn't secretly, if there was a star in the sky, there wouldn't be a need for secrecy. But there sure would be if it's astrology, because astrology was punishable by Deuteronomy 18. It was a capital offense to dabble in astrology. These magi, they're Persians, they don't know any better. Okay? They're from Rome's enemy. Forget whether or not Christ is illegitimate. Even if he's legitimate, and that's even worse, for him to be a king sought by the Persians? They want to worship a Jew. Okay, Persia is right alongside Israel. Persia just says, okay, we're going to submit to Israel. Now Israel is not a little buffer nation anymore, but an ally, or maybe even the ruler of, who knows how they felt, Persia. Okay, well now the enemy of Rome is augmented by Israel and the Persian and Israel connection, which had long been going on ever since Daniel. And Herod's in the middle on purpose, appointed there by Octavian, aka Augustus, in order to defend against Persia. And Herod himself is an Arab, but he converted to Judaism, and the Jews don't want him because he's an Arab. He's a Hasmonean Arab, very rich. Got that way in a variety of ways, good business practice, and also through making the right friends and enemies. He's in the middle. And he sure doesn't want some rival king. But it's more than Herod's personal desire here. If this claim were true, whether or not you can dispute Christ's legitimacy due to the marriage and due to her being pregnant before marriage, you got civil war here. So first we got a political brouhaha on a personal level, which goes all the way back. That's what these names are, especially from Zerubbabel forward. That's Haggai 2, and you can tell the political story at the rebuilding of the temple when Satan tried to stop it. All right? So you got one big political brouhaha going on here, and as it were, in Satan's to Satan's advantage, God writes this as the prophecy instead of something else he could have made prophecy. So even if it were legitimate, you're talking civil war here. That's why Herod is secret too. He's got to find out where this kid is. And he tells them Bethlehem, hoping they'll lead him to the kid, which they do. But they don't go to Bethlehem. All right? The reason they don't go to Bethlehem, and this is another proof that there's no star. They come into Jerusalem asking where, which means they don't know about Bethlehem. Which also means they're not seeing any star because it led them where? Not to Bethlehem, but to Jerusalem, which is 5 miles to the east. 5 miles northeast. They're not seeing the star now, or they wouldn't have even come and asked. If they saw, the star led them, see? The star led them. The star's obviously an angel if it leads. Stars are too high to lead anything. Okay? They're asking where. They don't know the prophecy. They're also not seeing the star, or they would have been led to the place where he was. In Bethlehem, which is the prophecy. Alright? And here it is in the caps. So Herod went to his own people to ask them questions. Why? Because if there was a star, they wouldn't have been troubled. They would have known about it. There is no star over Bethlehem predicted in the Bible, and there was no star overhead that they could see. And neither could the Magi see it anymore because they have to go into town and ask where he is. And then he says, oh, it's in Bethlehem. And he tells them to go to Bethlehem. And they go their way. And when they go their way, then suddenly they can see the star. But the star is not in Bethlehem. Because they come into the house. So they're not in Bethlehem. And bear in mind, when Matthew's telling this politically explosive story, he's expecting his audience to notice the irony of it. It's not a star because proago, it leads them. That's a cognizant action. It stands. That's a cognizant action, meaning you stop and you deliberately stand still, hovering over where? The house. Okay? And then they present him, and then in that same night, they leave. So Herod was following them anyway, wherever they went, which was to Nazareth, as we find out at the end of this chapter. Okay? See? He leaves it off because he knows his audience knows. So this is for rhetorical effect because it means dedicated. See, the chapter ends, even though they didn't have chapter markings and verse markings, it's a syntactical ending for the concept. Dedicated. Dedicated. Feast of Lights, angel is light. The Magi mistaken for a star, a nickname for angel is star. Feast of Lights, dedication, angel protecting Israel. And then this dedication is followed by this person dedicated to be his Jewish herald. So we end with a personal scandal that is also a political scandal because it's about the birth of a king. So his whole legitimacy as a son of David is questioned by the method in which he's born. God did not have to create this as a prophecy. He could have done something else. But he creates a politically explosive method which Israel had heard about ever since Isaiah. The first iteration of this prophecy is to the woman in the garden in Genesis 3. Genesis 3:15 through 22. Okay? And then the group civil war problem, if he is legitimate, see, he might not be legitimate, the legitimacy question is going to plague him his whole life. Right here. And oh, by the way, if he's legitimate, well then, Rome and Persia are going to battle over Israel. Israel's caught in between. Herod's caught in between. Everybody dies. Now, what have you learned in looking just at this much of Matthew? You've learned that Matthew's setting the story about politics, about political power, ruling the world, ruling a country, legitimacy, all the little, societal politenesses just being shot to hell. Right there. Especially starting in this section. And oh, by the way, even if you say he's legitimate, now we got World War III. That's the birth of Christ. But that's also the meaning of the prophecy. See? Judge my people, who will shepherd my people Israel. And what is the promise to Israel? Deuteronomy 32:8. Everybody's based, the whole world is controlled by the plan for Israel. Deuteronomy 32:8 reads in two different ways in the Hebrew versus the LXX, but it's got the same essential meaning. All world history revolves around Israel. If you're not Israel, you're pissed off that that claim is made about Israel. That's why the Arabs will forever say Israel has no right to exist. That's Article 1 of the PLO Charter, Palestinian Liberation Organization Charter. At least it was back in the 70s when I was in diplomacy school. Okay? So, honey, have a look. This is why the Arab wars go on. You're witnessing the fulfillment of the continuing political battle over Israel right now every time you turn on your television. This is just the way it was happening then. And just as they were persecuting Zerubbabel and all of his kids, because seed of Baal was announced to become seed of Christ, all right, the virgin conceiving. So now the babies have to be killed to prevent this son from coming to light, okay? And this is the ultimate political promise that all the other nations except Israel are going to be dog meat. And there's no star to help validate what the Magi are saying. But there is going to be a pogrom, this time by Herod, against the Jewish king, son of David. Because he can't afford to not do it. Because he's got to forestall Persia and Rome fighting with each other, because these big VIPs arrive. This means to arrive with a flourish, an ostentatious arrival. Okay, like at the Academy Awards. He's got to do something about this. This is a political problem. And of course, he doesn't believe that Christ is the Messiah. If he did, he'd try to find him to protect him. But that's what he pretends, so he can kill him. Alright? So, God kills him instead. Meanwhile, Ramah, and I've got to cover this. Ramah means high place. Not a high place like in the sense of worshiping demons, but a high place in the sense of the heights, the highlands. Okay? There were several Ramahs in Israel. Okay? Ramah, you even hear Ramah today mentioned. There were heights. It just means, it's Heights. It just means heights. There was a Ramah around Bethlehem, but there was also a Ramah around Nazareth. Okay? And we know that it was Nazareth because of this. So the Ramah being spoken of here is north of, about 6 days' journey, north of Bethlehem. So they had gotten home, and we know that, of course, because this is where the house is in Nazareth. And we're going to find that out from Luke. Luke's going to fill that in. But Matthew's audience knew of this. So what else do we know? Well, we know that the fear of civil war, even if they had accepted Jesus as genuine, was the motivating reason, the justifying reason that Herod used to try to kill the babies. And he picked anybody 2 and younger because you can't tell their age when they're suckling. So in order not to take a chance, he just wanted everybody killed, and he's counting ahead because it's not going to be easy to kill a bunch of babies all over these hilly, see, Ramah means hilly, highlands, heights. It's not going to be easy to kill them. Once you start killing some, the news is going to travel and people are going to hide their babies. So it could take about 2 years to kill them all. All right? And it takes place in a city that everybody despises because people despise sheep herders. The Jews despised sheep herders just as much as the Egyptians used to. All right? And they were dedicated. And this is something Luke's going to pick up on a lot. So you got civil war provoked by a worry over an international war between Persia and Rome. And then you got persecutions going on, Jew against Jew. All right? And before it got too much out of hand, Herod is killed. That's 4 months later. Herod died about Passover. Christ was born at Hanukkah, the Hanukkah before, and that 4 months later after that is Passover. And then, about 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, maybe it was later because there's a delay due to Archelaus. Archelaus means ruler of the people. Arche means ruler, and Laos means people. The political group, Laos. Political group of people. And they come to live at a town named Dedicated. And I've covered about Dedicated, the wordplay there. So, all of this, the child is born under nothing but struggle. And I haven't even covered the manger thing yet, but I will. The child is born under nothing but struggle. He's born under a dark cloud. His very birth provokes an attempted genocide. Not really, genocide isn't the right word, but slaughter of all the newborns. Okay. In order to prevent civil war. And all of this by who? It's not just any king of a particular nation. This would be like saying, hi, the daughter of Kate Middleton and Prince William is now going to be the ruler over the entire world. If people believed that, if that claim were made, and people believed it, everybody and his brother would be against Great Britain in the name of self-defense. Hitler was making a claim of dominance over the world, so the world went to war with him. Well, that's what this highlighted blue is saying. Israel's supposed to be queen of the nations, and this is the guy, their king, is going to create that history, that future history. Well, then Israel's going to be the most persecuted of the people. Because if there's no Israel, then there's nobody to shepherd Israel. And that's why the devil's so busy promoting anti-Semitism, trying to wipe Israel out. And 99% of Christians are anti-Semitic. And they prove it because they don't even understand the genealogy. They subscribe to Good Friday. You have to be anti-Semitic to believe in Good Friday. Okay, because that's not the Judaic law. It's Good Wednesday, and Exodus 12 tells you that, if you pay attention to your Bible. And every Bible movie ever made is anti-Semitic, because there's 4 days between the time Christ is arrested and the time that he's, crucified. So you see, anti-Semitism is both subtle and, how do you want to call it? People don't know. that they're being anti-Semitic, and it's also overt, like right here. This is overt. A ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. Everybody who knows that's the theme of the Bible are against Israel. And the Arabs are more aware of it than everybody else. That's why you just forget the Arab, you have to be a rare Arab not to be anti-Semitic. Okay? So I'm sorry I ramble a little, but I hope you realize that we have now set the theme of politics, religion and politics, all vying for control of the people. Archelaus, right? Good old Archelaus, ruler of the people. Everybody wants to be a ruler of the people. Yeah, because there's this guy who's going to shepherd Israel and rule the world through her. And so everybody's got to fight against Israel to stop that from happening. Devil most of all. So what is Matthew's theme? Matthew's theme is this versus this. Is this going to come true? Or is this going to come true? And the one dedicated to this coming true has just returned home. And that's where we'll pick up, because that's where Luke's going to pick up in the next increment.